First off, I'd like to thank the Melissas for organizing this event for Lansing Lit. My name is Holly Mays, and I will be reading an excerpt from my memoir, Dream Girl, published last December with Kohler Books. Please be advised, content related to substance use and adult themes will be mentioned. Names of people, businesses, and cities have been changed. Dream Girl is my story about growing up in poverty, raised in a strict patriarchal religion that dictated every part of my life. Shortly after I graduated high school, I made the terrifying choice to leave. In doing so, I lost everything: my community, my family, and almost everyone I had ever known and loved. Struggling to survive, I eventually found myself working in the adult entertainment industry, battling addiction, and searching for something, anything, to fill the void. But my story doesn't end there. It's a story of breaking free, of finding strength in the darkest moments, and of reclaiming my life on my own terms. The section I will be reading is about the evening I decided to apply for a job at the strip club. A red carpet fit for royalty ran beneath the covered walkway and led to the club's entrance. The doorway, made of stained glass, was impossible to see through. The first thing to hit me was the thumping bass coming from inside. I couldn't tell if it was my anxiety or the loud music that made my chest compress. A lit-up marquee hung on the left side of the entrance, featuring a young woman in a thong bikini wearing dark lipstick with seductive eyes. I briefly recalled my Bible studies where the elders referred to harlots sent by Satan. That image could have been used as a modern-day representation. I averted my curious gaze. I had been standing there ogling her. I'd have to get used to seeing women like that if I waitressed here, and I didn't want to be a prude. A thick, burly man stood behind a podium to the right. He held a clipboard in front of him and glanced up at me. He was probably a bouncer. I asked him for an application and then waited to see if he'd laugh at me. He nodded and told me to wait while he located the manager. So far, so good. He didn't kick me out or act like I didn't belong. I stood at the podium, swaying a little to the music and trying to act like I didn't have a care in the world. I saw the bar directly across from me where a bartender walked past and grabbed some liquor off the shelf. Flashing lights bounced on the walls around me in time to the music, but I still couldn't see inside. Just then, two amazingly tall, beautiful women teetered by me, giggling and leaning into each other, clutching small, glittery purses. They wore short skirts and what looked like bikini tops. They were all legs and very thin. One of them turned toward me, her face fully done with makeup. She didn't smile. She looked away, and they wandered further into the bar and out of my line of vision. I nearly turned around to leave. What am I doing here? Just then, the bouncer reappeared with a man who introduced himself as Larry. Larry was a short, stocky man with dark curly hair and a gruff manner. A toothpick hung from the side of his mouth. While the bouncer had barely glanced at me, Larry took me in from head to toe with a sharp, no-nonsense gaze. I had smoked part of a joint for courage before I came in. I instantly wondered if he could smell it. He nodded toward a door behind the podium that led to an office. His office was a small, cramped space with very little room to move. It probably had been a coat check closet in a previous life. A coffee cup with brown stains on the inside and the phrase, "I love titties," printed on the outside sat next to his computer. I tried not to stare at the pictures of naked women all over his walls and desk, but he caught me looking too intently. "She's pretty," I said, gesturing toward a topless woman with a postage stamp-sized piece of cloth covering her vagina. "Yeah," he said, making a grunting noise as he sat in his chair. After shuffling piles of paper around on his desk, he finally located an application and a pen. It was a standard job application, except there was a place for a stage name. I left it blank because I wanted to be a waitress, and I didn't think waitresses needed stage names. He busied himself organizing a stack of papers and phone messages at his desk while I completed the form. After a few minutes, he turned back around and took my application. I sat straight up in my chair, figuring this was my interview and it was time to make a good impression. He briefly glanced at my application, flipped it over, and sat it down in front of him. He switched his soggy toothpick to the other side of his mouth. His chair groaned in protest as he leaned back and placed his hands behind his head. You see, I'm not hiring waitresses right now. My heart sank and shame washed over me like a rippling tide. Who did I think I was walking in here to get a job? I wasn't good enough. I wasn't pretty enough, even with bad lighting, to waitress there. He must have noticed my acne scars or that my weight wasn't right. I certainly wasn't beautiful compared to the two women that I had seen walking by when I first arrived. This, I thought, is how he lets me down easy. How he tells ugly girls that they aren't wanted here. I hoped I could at least slink out without anyone seeing. I just wanted to leave. After a few seconds of silence, he picked up my application and threw it on top of a mound of papers on his desk. That's when I noticed they were all applications. There must have been more than 100 in the stack. Mine was on top of a huge pile until it slowly slid down to land near the I Love Titties coffee cup. See these, he said, pointing to them? A few more fell off and landed on the floor. He didn't bother to pick them up. These are all the applications for waitresses I received within the last couple of months. I get applications all the time for waitresses. I don't need any more. I was trying not to cry. Rent was due this week. I couldn't imagine Tamara's face when I came back with no job and no prospects. I was going to be homeless with my daughter. I didn't have a plan B. This was my backup plan. I quit my job with no notice. I had one check left for very few hours, coming next week. I thought of Riley, and I had no idea how I was going to take care of her. Somehow I gathered up my purse and straightened my shoulders. I understand. Thank you for your time. He leaned forward in his chair, switching his toothpick to the other side of his mouth. You know, we can always use another dancer. You wouldn't mind dancing, would you? He eyed me shrewdly, his gaze pausing at my breasts. You could make a lot of money. I almost asked him to repeat himself. He wanted me to dance? Maybe the lighting in here was worse than I thought. I had never taken a dance class in my life. The only choreographed performance I had ever done was ice skating with old ladies as the Queen of Hearts in a deck of cards. I was neither tall nor graceful. I had stretch marks and a C-section scar. I certainly didn't consider my breasts attractive enough for someone to want to pay money to see. He took my silent shock as consideration. It's great money, he reiterated. You can pick your own hours. His elbow hit the stack of applications and more of them fell on the floor. I've never danced before. I haven't even had any formal training. That doesn't matter. In fact, it probably helps. I figured I may as well be honest with him, no sense in him finding out the hard way. I blurted out, I have stretch marks and scars and from a C-section. He looked confused, like he wasn't sure if I spoke English. It's got nothing to do with it. Lots of the girls do. He casually tossed his mutilated toothpick in the trash can and leaned back. His chair groaned from the shift in weight. You don't have to. It's just a suggestion. I should have stood up and left there in a huff, told him no way, and to only call me if he wanted an excellent waitress. Harlots and Jezebels. I glanced at the women in the photographs. My face flushed, considering what would happen if my parents found out. My mother. What about my grandmother? But none of them had to pay my bills. I had no money. I wasn't going to have any money, not anytime soon. I needed diapers, I needed food, and rent. I silently cursed myself for walking out of that job at Cracker Barrel, but I could do nothing about it now. There was no way I could go back. I still hadn't said much as we stood up and walked out of his office. Why don't you come in later this week and audition? If it's not a good fit, then no worries. Come in Thursday night. He escorted me to the entrance and shook my hand again. See you Thursday. I hadn't even seen the inside of the club, but there was something inside me that felt excited and exhilarated. What if? If you'd like to hear more from Dream Girl, I'll be at Hooked Bookstore in Lansing tomorrow at noon for Lansing Lit, where I'll read another chapter and I'll sign books. A portion of the proceeds will benefit the Women's Center of Greater Lansing. And now I have the honor of welcoming to the stage a fellow writer, a mentor to many, and a dear friend of mine, Rob Edwards.